IMG, in computing, refers to binary files with IMG file name extension that store raw disk images of floppy disks, hard drives, or optical disks. Overview: the IMG file name extension is used by disk image files, which contain raw dumps of a magnetic disk or of an optical disk. Since a raw image consists of a sector-by-sector binary copy of the source medium, the actual format of the file contents will depend on the file system of the disk from which the image was created. Raw disk images of optical media contain a raw image of all the tracks in a disk. In the case of CD-ROMs and DVDs, these images usually include not only the data from each sector, but the control headers and error correction fields for each sector as well. Since IMG files hold no additional data beyond the disk contents, these files can only be automatically handled by programs that can detect their file systems. For instance, a typical raw disk image of a floppy disk begins with a fat boot sector, which can be used to identify its file system. Disk images of optical media are usually accompanied by a descriptor file which describes the layout of the disk, and includes information such as track limits which are not stored in the raw image file. File name extensions and variants. The IMG file extension was originally used for floppy disk raw disk images only. A similar file extension, IMA, is also used to refer to floppy disk image files by some programs. A variant of IMG, called IMZ, consists of a zipped version of a raw floppy disk image. These files use the IMZ file extension, and are commonly found in compressed images of floppy disks created by WinImage. QEMU uses the IMG file extension for raw images of hard drive disks, calling the format simply RAW. Clone CD stores optical disk images in IMG files and generates additional clone CD control files for each image to hold the necessary metadata. The QBin format stores disk images in bin files, which are functionally equivalent to IMG image files, and uses Q files as descriptor files. Size. The file size of a raw disk image is always a multiple of the sector size. For floppy disks and hard drives, this size is typically 512 bytes. More precisely, the file size of a raw disk image of a magnetic disk corresponds to cylinders A, heads A. For example, for 80 cylinders and 2 heads with 18 sectors per track, 80A, 2A, 18A, 512 equals 1,474,560 bytes or 1440 kilobytes. For optical disks such as CDs and DVDs, the raw sector size is usually 2,352, making the size of a raw disk image a multiple of this value. Comparison to ISO images. ISO images are another type of optical disk image files, which commonly use the ISO file extension, but sometimes use the IMG file extension as well. They are similar to the raw optical disk images, but contain only one track with computer data obtained from an optical disk. They cannot contain multiple tracks, nor audio or video tracks. They also do not contain the control headers and error correction fields of CD-ROM or DVD sectors that raw disk images usually store. Their internal format follows the structure of an optical disk file system, commonly ISO 9660 or UDF. The QBin and CCD-IMG formats, which usually contain raw disk images, can also store ISO images instead. Tools. The raw IMG file format is used by several tools. RAWWrite and WinImage use the IMG disk image format to read and write floppy disk images. IMDisk and Virtual Floppy Drive can mount a raw image of a floppy disk to emulate a floppy drive under Microsoft Windows. Narrow Burning Room supports reading IMG files for creating bootable CDs. MTools allows manipulation of MS-DOS floppy disk images in Unix systems. Programs such as DSKTRANS from the libdsk suite of command-line tools will convert between different raw disk image formats. DD can be used in Unix to create raw disk image files of disks. QEMU uses IMG files as its default format for hard drive disk images. References